Namaskar. I am a 2B Vaidya, Ms. Alakshaudi. So today I am going to put some light on the topic Jala Mahabhut, which means the water element. So before we start, let me inform you that to understand Jala Mahabhut in its full sense, our thought process should be subtle like water. As we see that water takes the shape of whichever vessel we use to store it. Similarly should be our thought process. So, we all must have heard about the Panchamahabhutas. What are these Panchamahabhutas? According to Ayurveda, they are the five great elements that together make every element of this universe. These elements include Akash, also known as space. Vayu means wind. Agni means fire. Jala or Aap denotes water. And the last but not the least is the Prithvi, which means earth. Each of these elements have a unique characteristic and a major role to play in the formation of this world. According to Ayurveda, the whole world is made by these five Mahabhutas. Similarly, it says that the human body is also formed by these elements. Therefore, a balanced proportion of these elements in the body is quite necessary to sustain a healthy lifestyle. So now, what is Jala Mahabhuta? It represents the various fluid or liquid elements in the body such as the saliva, gastric juice, lymph, blood and water. Water is one of the most basic and important elements that help in the human survival. Jala, as we say in the Ayurvedic terminology, covers about 75% of the earth's surface and up to 70% of an adult human body. So now the question arises that how is Jala Mahabhuta formed? It is formed by Agner Apaha. The Mahabhutas sequentially create the next Mahabhuta. Hence, Jala is formed from the Agni Mahabhuta. Hence, we say Agner Apaha. How does Agni create Jala? Agni, which is the entity of heat and energy, starts losing its heat and vibrations, thus forming an entity which is more stable and cold. This entity is Jala Mahabhut. So, from Akasha to Prithvi, there is increase in the Stulata and Gahanta. The conversion of Vayu to Agni is thus an exothermic reaction. But since the bonds of Jala are much more stronger and the entity is much more stable, it absorbs the heat from the surroundings, thus indicating an endothermic reaction. This endothermic reaction makes Jala cold. This in Ayurveda is explained as Sheet Sparshatya Apaha. Jala is cold to touch. This highlights the fact that the nature of Jala is to absorb heat by the virtue of its mass and stronger bonds. Let us now look into some of the other interrelated gunas of Jala. The first one is Snegdhata. It refers to the cohesiveness or the binding energy or the chemical bonds responsible for the mass and stability. Not all liquids are Jalaya. For example, petrol, alcohol, nail polish remover, etc. These are volatile in nature, or in other words, these are liquids whose chemical bonds are easily broken and hence they lack the Snigdha guna and are more Agneya in nature. So, we can conclude that all those entities which are responsible for binding together by absorbing energy are Jalabhut Pradhana. This guna of snigdhata is also the reason for the idea of water memory, which postulates that the water can retain memory, emotions, etc. Now, the second guna is dravatva. This guna is not only indicates liquidity or fluidity, but also their logical counterparts. In the solid state of matter, like malleability, ductility, tensility, and elasticity, dravatva refers to that property of materials which allows them to deform under compressive stress. It allows the substance to keep bending or changing shape and not break by the virtue of its stronger bonds. The next guna is mandatva, which means slow acting or slow disintegration. The detailed explanation of Jala is given by Tarka Sangraha. The given shloka means Aap or Jala is that which has a cold touch. It exists in two states, the eternal or the Nitya state or the Paramanu Rupa, and the perishable or the Anitya state, which is the Karya Rupa. The Karya Rupa exists in three forms. Jaleya Sharira is the Varuna Loka, made of Jala Mahabhuta. The Indriyas corresponding to Jala is the Rasanendriya or the gustatory faculty, which is present at the exterior of the tongue. The Vishaya objects include all the water bodies like seas, rivers, lakes. Some authors also mention the presence of four types of Jalas: Amba, Maricha, Mara, and Aap. Amba is one of the most stable state of Jala and is known to be present in Paramesti Mandala, which is our own known galaxy. Marichi. It is Jala present between the Surya Mandala and the earth, where it is acted upon by the sun rays. Mara is the Jala which exists on the surface of the earth, like rivers, lakes, etc. And the fourth one is Apa, Jala found under the surface of the earth, like well water. I had mentioned that Jala Mahabhut is responsible for the rasana or the gustatory sense. Let us analyze this with a simple experiment. Try to blow dry your mouth. Temporarily, the oral cavity will lose its dominance of Jala Tattva, right? Now, place a piece of food on your tongue. Are you able to taste the food as you usually do? No, right? This is because the Jala Tattva is required to bind the molecules present in the food to the receptors of the Rasanendriya, which is responsible for the perception of taste. Acharya Vagbhat states the principles of Ambuyoni. He opines that life originates from Jala or Ambu. Among planktonic solids, icosandron is a solid with 20 faces which represents the Jala Mahabhut. Okay, so this is the overall introduction of about what is the Jala Mahabhuta. Now, let me answer the normal questions or doubts people have with respect to water in their daily living. Okay, so the first question that many people, even healthy people, ask is that when, how much, and why to drink water. Now, whatever I am going to tell you is the foremost and very important to be practically applied in your day-to-day life. According to Ayurveda, it's always believed that we should first try it practically and then trust it. The thirst. The thirst is of two types. One is the need, second is the greed. Type 1 thirst, which is feeling parched, the need. When your mouth feels dry, it makes you feel thirsty. It is an indication that a water intake is needed to quench one's thirst. For example, whenever we do some tiresome, tedious, heavy tasks like running long distances, playing with children, exercising, your body sweats it out and exhausts itself. Or when we consume a lot of sweets, salty products, and spicy, heavy meals, these are the times when water intake is needed and our body signals us to drink water as required by the body. The type 2 thirst is water intoxication, an unnecessary craving for water. It is like a disease, an addiction, a habit to constantly gulp water often. This often indicates that it is a symptom of a disease or an illness. For example, diabetes or madhumeha in Ayurvedic terminology. Now, some patients often question Vaidyas about the reason why they feel excessive thirst suddenly in the middle of the night. Here, the solution is drink water, but only a sip of water is enough at that time. Don't gulp it down quickly. Let the water intake be a slow process, just the way we chew food 32 times for better digestion. Similarly, the water should be sipped slowly. Let it roll into your mouth for a few seconds before swallowing it, so as to let our saliva mix with the water. This is important for the proper digestion of water. Another important suggestion is that water intake should be less after sunset, and also avoid drinking water at the bedtime. So now let us look how drinking water in excess has negative effect on the functioning of this body. We know where there is water, there is fermentation, and that for a living organism to survive, water is one of the most important element. So, where there is water, there will be bacteria and other microorganisms. With this, we can conclude that even in our body, if there is excess of water, there might be more infections. The Jala Mahabhuta opposes Agni. So, when there is less hunger, water should be used in the minimal quantity. Let me explain this to you using a simple example. If there is a campfire lit over and you put water over it, the fire will be put off. Similarly, the digestive fire in our system or stomach will exhaust itself if we consume more water than required. When we wake up in the morning, we should feel hungry or thirsty? Hungry. When we are hungry, we must eat or drink? Of course, eat. But now, if we eat when we are thirsty and drink when we are hungry, won't our system be disturbed? Of course, it will be. So, let us now look into some of the diseases caused due to excessive consumption of water. Prameha, diabetes, Mutkhada, kidney stone, Sandhivata, osteoarthritis, gas, Agni-mandhya, indigestion, bloating in stomach, hair fall, weight gain, and many more. If we reduce the water intake in our body, all these diseases will be reduced. Let it be PCOD, thyroid, let it be anything. All these increase with increase in the body water. If we reduce the water, excess water in our body, the Agni in our body will increase and will dominate over the Jala Mahabhut, and this will prevent all the diseases. According to the Western medicine, drinking this quantity of water will cure this many diseases. All these types of diseases. This looks good on a paper, but the case is different in day to day functioning. If there is a waterfall whose water is flowing gently and gracefully, you will be able to enjoy it on you. But on the other hand, if there is a waterfall which has a rough and heavy flow, you won't be able to hold your hand under it. Therefore, Ma Ganga, when came from the Himalayas, was taken in the hands of Bhagwan Shiva and was slowed down and let ahead. Similarly, if such water is taken into the body, the Agni of the body will be destroyed, giving rise to more and more diseases. Now, let us perform a small experiment of purification of water using alum stone. Alum, also known as potassium aluminium sulfate, helps in purifying water by aluminium, which coagulates the mud particles. Dirty water is a colloid. Alum acts as an electrolyte and helps in the coagulation. However, alum purified water doesn't make it that clean enough to drink because dissolved salts and bacteria remain unaffected in this process. The before and after result of the experiment is shown in the next slide. Did you know that the water retains memory? Japanese scientist Dr. Masaru Emoto scientifically proved through decades of his research that molecular structure of water can be altered with human intentions and emotions. Simply by saying certain words or phrases at the droplets of water and freezing them, the difference in the crystalline structure is astounding. Keep in mind that our bodies are also about 60 to 70% water, meaning our thoughts can positively or negatively affect the entire system. Water has memory. Depending on how you treat it, what kinds of thoughts and emotions you generate, accordingly, it behaves in your body. There are methods to manifest your exact desires into reality. Get two empty glasses. Write down your current situation on one piece of paper. Write down on another piece of paper your desired outcome. Stick the notes to each glass. Fill the glass with water that has your current situation. Pour that water into the desired outcome glass. Then drink. Water has memory and can be programmed with intentions. So that's it from my side. Thank you all for listening patiently. I would also like to thank Dr. Bishnupriya Mohanty ma'am for allotting me this topic on Jalamahabhut as a non-lecture assignment. Thank you. Satchidanand.